just so you know, the proper way to announce all the different things you have to use to create a glyph is runes. I tend to say ruins, but just so you know, imagine every time I say ruins that I said runes. Alright, tonight we are going to learn all about enchanting. We're going to learn what it is, how you do it, what you need to do it, and everything from actually picking up all the materials you need to applying a glyph to your armor or weapon, jewelry, whatever. You're going to learn everything in between, how to level it up, and all that. So, the very first question I should answer is, what is enchanting? Enchanting is where you find ruins, you put them, you craft them together, and in turn you create a glyph. A glyph can be applied to either your armor, weapon, or jewelry to give it some kind of passive effect, whether it be add a max stamina or magicka, maybe it'll up your regen rate, maybe it'll reduce the cost of bashing or blocking. They do all sorts of different things, and it's super handy. What's really nice is that you don't need to craft a whole new set of armor. You can just keep applying glyphs to your armor or weapons, and it just overrides the last one. So if you find one you like better, you can just throw it on something and boom, now it has that enchantment. So before we really start digging into enchanting, we're going to take a look at the skill tree that you need to put some skill points into if you plan on learning this. The very first skill we have is aspect improvement. So this just means that with each level, you'll be able to use the next level of aspect rune in order to create a glyph. You start out only being able to use Ta, which is just your white regular glyph. You can then put a skill point in and use Jojota, which makes a green or a fine type glyph. Past that, you can put another point in and make Donata, well, not make it, but use a Donata aspect rune in order to create a blue or superior glyph. Next up is purple, which you'll use a Rakuta, and then finally, for the fourth point in, you will be able to use Kuda, which will make legendary glyphs. Up next, we have potency improvement. A potency rune stone is another type of rune you're going to need when you go to create a glyph. And what this really signifies is that this will allow you to make the next level range of glyph. So the very first level, you'll be able to craft level 1 to 10 or level 5 to 15 glyphs. If you want to craft any glyphs that are for a higher level item, you're going to have to put more skill points into your potency improvement. Kenai works the same as it does for other crafts. This just makes your ruined stones a lot easier to spot while you're out harvesting. It gives them a glow a little bit more than they already have, as well it kind of puts off some smoke. On your very first skill point, your ruins are going to be easier to see from 20 meters or closer. Your second skill point, 30 meters or closer, and your third skill point will be 40 meters or closer. Here you have your hireling, which is when you go offline, a hireling will find rune stones for you. This will refresh every 24 hours. Now, that is what the 1 out of 3 would be, just refreshes once every 24 hours. When you put a second skill point in, it will say your hireling has a good chance of finding rare rune stones. So you'll get the little higher level or the better aspect runes from them. If you were to put your third point in, you're actually going to get a mail package every 12 hours. Something to note, and this is the reason I only have 2 out of 3 on, is that this is on a real life timer. So let's say I log in at 6 o'clock in the morning and I spend my first point into this. When I log in at 6 o'clock the next morning, I'll get a mail and I can take it and go on my merry way. 6 o'clock, 24 hours later, same thing. But if someday I don't get to log in until 9 o'clock in the morning, from then on, I'll pick up my mail at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I won't be able to pick it up at 6 o'clock the next morning again. Your timer starts from when you last picked up your mail. So I will have to wait until 9 o'clock the next day. Same with every 12 hours. When you log in once a day, you don't just have 2 mails sitting there. You actually have to log in every 12 hours to receive the mail. On our very last passive is Rune Stone Extraction. This increases the chance of extracting each type of rune stone. If you have 3 out of 3 in, this is for 10%. I believe the first one is 5% and 2 out of 3 skill points is somewhere in the middle, but I didn't actually check before this guide. Just know that you can pay attention to the percentage that it tells you, and it just, when you're deconstructing glyphs, you'll have a better chance of getting all types of the ruins back. How do you get enchanting? So what do you need? What do you need to actually create a glyph? Well, first we're going to find ourselves an enchanting station. If we open up our map, you'll notice this icon right here. When I scroll over it, you'll see another small icon that says there's an enchanting table there. Mostly enchanting tables are really close with alchemy tables, but this isn't true for every single town. So we'll run in here and we'll notice the banner. This is the enchanting icon. So this is an enchanting table. We'll run up and use it. Now, in order to create a glyph, you're going to need 3 different types of runes. Potency rune, which is your square. Essence rune, which is your triangle. And aspect rune, which is a circle. That way you'll actually be able to create a glyph. Now, how do you even get these? First of all, you can harvest them while you're out questing or just go out into the world to harvest, or you can buy them from other players. You cannot buy ruins from the enchanter that's actually an NPC. As you'll see, I'll go here. You can only buy glyphs from the enchanter. You can actually buy the materials you need to craft. Alright, it looks like we found ourselves an essence rune stone. As you can tell, it glows yellow. I do have keen eye, but I'll let you know the yellow glow it has, that shows up whether you have keen eye or not. So it is a lot easier to spot ruins without the keen eye ability, but I still like to have it. As you run up to it, you'll see that it's an essence rune, and you'll notice, like I mentioned, keep track of that color because all essence runes will be that same color. Looks like we got ourselves an Oko, so we're going to carry on and see if we can find the other types of ruins as well. Alright, it looks like we also found an aspect rune. We can tell it's an aspect rune from the red glow that this rune emits. As well, I still have keen eye on, so that's why you see the smoke, but the red glow will always be there. So we're going to collect this aspect rune. Now we just have one more type of rune to collect. Alright, and now for the final type of rune stone you're going to need, we found ourselves a potency rune stone. As you can tell, this rune has kind of like a purple bluish glow about it. Probably kind of depends on your monitor, but that's the color it will glow. Once again, I still have keen eye on, so that's why it's smoking. So just go ahead and grab one when you find it. Alright, so now we've actually found out what enchanting is, we've found an enchanting station, and we've found some materials to actually be able to use to create a glyph. Let's actually get to creating one. You'll notice in your creation screen you have a couple different tabs. You can look at all your different runes in one screen, or you can look at just potency, just essence, or just aspect. So I'm going to do a quick overview of what everything does. I'm not going to go through every single one, but I can let you know right now there are 28 different potency runes. As for essence, there is 19 different ones. In aspect, there's just the 5 different levels. Each different type of rune will actually designate something different in the end glyph that you create. So here, let's look at one of them. We're going to look at Edora. Now, what a potency rune mostly designates is actually the level of glyph. So here, You can only apply this glyph to items between levels 30 and 40. It actually doesn't matter what level your character is. It depends all on what level the item you want to apply it to is. So for all your regular levels before veteran rank, there is a 10 level span. You also see that this is your potency improvement number 4. That's where you had to put skill points into your potency improvement to be able to craft higher level glyphs. If we keep moving on, we're going to look for Shera, which is also another potency improvement 4. But what you'll notice is that we now have a level gap of level 35 to 45, but it's still pretty close in range. If we keep moving, we're going to find 2 more because there's 4 for every improvement level. Here we're back to our level 30 and 40. And finally, we'll find another one back to level 35 and 45. Something else that potency designates is if it's an additive or a subtractive type of glyph. So here, you'll see that this adds cold resistance, and we'll go back up to our other level 35 to 45 rune, and this actually deals cold damage. So we're dealing with cold no matter what, but one of them is actually giving us more resistance, one is dealing damage. So you'll find this with all the different potency runes. As I mentioned, there is always 4 different potency stones for each potency improvement level. Now we know what the potency does, we're going to move on to essence. Essence determines what type of element is used in the glyph. As we saw previously, the essence that we were using has something to do with cold. So if I scroll over it, we'll see the translation is frost. If I move it to something such as stamina, we'll see that now our glyph has something to do with stamina. These are not level dependent. You can use all of these at all different levels. This is just what makes your glyph do something different. It uses a different element. Also remember though, that your potency does have a little bit to do with what it does. As here, we'll see that we're creating a damage shield, and if we move along and use a different potency, we can actually change what this does. Now, instead of giving ourselves a damage shield, we're reducing our target's armor, which is kind of like a damage shield. So you can switch it a little bit with potency, but you're really choosing what your glyph does, mostly with your essence. You can just play around with this. You'll have to create a lot of different glyphs in order to learn them all, but it becomes much easier once you've created all the glyphs. Last but not least, we have aspect runes. What this does is just signifies how strong the glyph is. This gives it a different item quality. It works the same way as all the other items in Elder Scrolls Online. Here we were working with Ta, so it's a white glyph. You'll notice that this deals 157 magic damage and restores 71 health. If we upgrade it to a green, we're going to do 172 magic damage and restore 78 health. I can keep moving up, and we're dealing more damage and we are restoring more health. It doesn't change level or what the glyph does in any way. It just makes it better. Another thing to know is that there is actually a little bit of making sense to how to create a glyph. All of your armor glyphs are actually just going to add maximum health, stamina, or magicka. Those are the only options you have. You can't actually create armor glyphs that do anything else. There's a lot more variation though when you go to create a weapon glyph. A weapon glyph can do things such as give yourself a damage shield. It can do damage as well as restore some of your stat, could be magicka, stamina, health, whatever. And with jewelry, there's a huge wide variation. You can actually add resistances to your jewelry. You can add to your regen rate with your jewelry. You can add all types of stuff. So you really want to explore and learn all the different types of glyphs to see what you have available to you. Alright, now we're actually going to go ahead and create our first glyph. Here we're going to make one that can be applied to an item between levels 1 to 10, and it's actually going to add max health. So we're going to create 2 of them so that I can show you something different. Now, you'll see that here are the glyphs, and you'll notice that I do have another type of glyph in my bag, but these both have the same symbol. The triangle means that it's for armor. Here, by the pentagon, you know that this glyph is actually meant for a weapon. We'll create a jewelry one later so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to quickly show you what it looks like when your character doesn't actually know all the different runes. Here you'll see that I just put together a glyph, and this character has no idea what kind of glyph it's going to create. And as you can tell, as I scroll over lots of these, lots of them, it's just a question mark. I have not used these yet, so it doesn't know what they do. So let's use this one. And we know this means develop. Oh, we don't know what this means. So we're going to use a potency that we don't know what it means. We're going to use an essence that we don't know what it means. And we are going to still use a ta. So you'll still see unknown glyph. Here, we just found out that we translated 2 different runes. So now we know that notad means subtract, and this one means disease. You also find out that if you put these same 3 items back in your bar, that you're actually going to see what type of glyph you're going to create now, because you've learned all the different options. Now, how do you actually apply a glyph to something? Well, you can do it a couple different ways. If it's something that you're actually wearing, you can right-click it and hit enchant, or you can just scroll over it and hit R to enchant it. But I'm not actually going to be doing anything with what I'm wearing. I'm going to use stuff that I have actually in my bag already. You'll see that I have a pair of level 5 boots. So I'm going to scroll over it. I can once again right-click and enchant it, or just hit R. And there are all the glyphs that I have available that can be applied to this specific item. You'll notice that weapon glyph I have in my bag does not show up here. I'm also going to show you, if we look at a veteran rank 1 item, and I try to enchant it, nothing shows up because I don't have any glyphs of the proper level. To actually enchant something, you're going to have to select what glyph, in case you have a couple different ones here, and click enchant. Although, we're going to take a moment to look at this. The glyph I created adds 77 max health. You can scroll over the icon on the right to see what it does. You'll notice that on my boots, it's only going to add 31 maximum health. I can go over to my robe over here, and I'll do the same thing. It adds the whole 77 health that the glyph is actually meant to do. Why is that? Well, in ESO, we have large and small enchanting or armor slots. So, you're going to get the full value of your enchantment or your glyph when you apply it to something on your chest, on your head, on your shield if you have one, or on your legs. You're only going to get a small portion of what that glyph is actually good for when you apply it to something such as your waist, your boots, your gloves, or your shoulders. Alright, to go ahead and enchant, we're going to hit R, we're going to select our glyph, we're going to type or hit enchant. Doesn't appear like anything happened, but now if we look at the chest piece that we just crafted with no enchantment on it, it now adds 77 max health. Something I'd like to note is that The boots, even though they're green, the item you're enchanting does not matter as to how much of the glyph is applied. Your glyph will not change if your item is blue, white, or any different type of level. It all depends on what level your glyph is. Here we can enchant this. Ta-da! Oh. I don't know what happened. Oh, ta-da! Adds 31 max health. Now it's enchanted. Something that's worth noting is that if you do have the ability to enchant an item that is already enchanted by a different glyph. If you do enchant an item with another glyph, it will replace the current enchantment. So if I were to create a glyph that adds max stamina and applied it to this set of boots here, it would no longer give me any max health. It would only give me max stamina. If you do decide to replace an enchantment on an item by putting a different glyph on top, you will actually lose that glyph. You do not get the glyph that was originally applied back. It is just lost forever. You just cover it back up. You can only use a glyph once. Another thing to keep in mind when replacing glyphs or enchanting items is that if this is a looted item, there may be a lock actually on the item tooltip. That signifies that you will not be able to replace the enchantment. Alright, you also notice there's another tab that's called Extraction when you go to the enchanting table. What this does is it deconstructs a glyph. What this is good for is that you learn a lot of inspiration, which is your experience for your craft. As well, you have the possibility of getting some of your runes back. Like I mentioned, there is an actual skill that you can put points into that helps with getting runes back. As you can see, it increases the chance of extracting each type of rune stone by 10%. What you really want to use Deconstruction for is when you are leveling up enchanting. This is going to be a huge source of inspiration for you. Something to note is that player-created glyphs made by other players, not your character, are actually worth the most inspiration points in-game, followed up by looted items, and lastly, glyphs that you actually create. So a great way to level up is to craft a bunch of glyphs, trade with another player for their crafted glyphs, and deconstruct them. Here you'll see what we can do. All you do is add it, extract, I got back a ta. That's all you do to deconstruct a glyph. Something else I mentioned earlier is that now we can see all different 3 types of glyphs. Here you'll see the symbol for armor glyph, kind of a triangle. Here you'll see the symbol for weapon glyph, which is kind of a pentagon. And last but not least, here's the symbol for jewelry, which is in a circle. Another great way to get a lot of inspiration is by learning all the different traits or translations. Every time you learn a new translation, you get a ton of inspiration points. So even if you don't really plan on using that rune in the future, you should definitely still craft at least one glyph with it to learn it, just for the inspiration points it gives you. Something that doesn't have to do exactly with enchanting, but it does tie into it, is a couple of the different traits for your equipment crafts. So here we'll look at one of your armor traits, which is Infused. This increases your armor enchantment effect by 8%. So I'm going to actually craft an item with Infused and one without, and we'll show you what the difference is. Here we'll see we have our homespun robe, which is level 10, that we do not have the Infused trait on. So if I enchant this and I add a petty glyph of health to the item, I'm going to add 154 max health. So we're going to enchant that. Now we're going to apply a glyph to also level 10 white robe that is infused. So we actually implemented a trait into this robe when we crafted it. So let's go about enchanting it with the exact same type of glyph, which should add 154 max health, just like it did to our other robe. Now we'll compare the two. Our original robe, that does not have the infused trait on it, adds 154 maximum health. The robe with infused trait now adds 166 maximum health. No matter what glyph you apply, if you have the infused trait on the item, it will make the armor enchantment effect stronger by 8%. The percentage will go up if you actually increase the item to a green, a blue superior, or a purple artifact item, then your percentage will go up. But nonetheless, it affects your glyph. Weapons also have traits that can affect how your glyphs are applied. First of all, there's the powered trait. This reduces the cooldown of weapon enchantments by 30%. So, for an example, if you look at my weapon, I have a enchantment that grants a 556 point damage shield for 5 seconds. What the tooltip doesn't tell you is that there's actually an internal cooldown that stops this damage shield from constantly going off and I'm constantly having it. The power trait will actually reduce that cooldown, so I will be able to use that damage shield more often. The charge trait also has a bit to do with your enchantments. This is also a weapon trait. You'll notice that I have a bar here that's almost empty above my hardening enchantment on my weapon here. Once an enchantment bar actually goes all the way empty, you actually have to recharge it so it's useful again. When your bar is empty, your enchantment just won't work on your weapon anymore. I will no longer be granted my damage shield. If you have the charge trait on your weapon, you're actually going to get a lot more uses out of that enchantment. It's going to proc a lot more often before you need to recharge it. Speaking of recharging your weapons, now is a good time to let you know that you always need to do this. And how exactly do you do that? Well, first of all, you need a full soul gem that is the appropriate level for the item that you are using. As you can see, I'm in a veteran rank character using veteran rank gear, so I need to use a grand soul gem. All you're going to do is scroll over top of your weapon. You can either right click or you can actually just hit F for charge. It offers me the different soul gems I can use. You'll see it fills up my bar so it works again. And voila! Now I have a fully charged weapon. You want to make sure that you keep up on this or else your enchantments won't be doing you any good. Another way to gain a lot of inspiration to level up your enchanting is to do crafting writs. These are going to be available to you once you hit level 6. You'll find a quest marker at a board, and they'll tell you to go meet someone near one of the guild halls so that they can certify you. You'll want to do this, and then you'll be able to pick up a new crafting writ every single day. These will involve you having to craft a glyph, maybe acquire a certain rune, as well you'll have to set it off at a drop point. You can get new glyphs back in return, you'll earn some gold, as well there's a chance to get a survey report. These are special treasure maps that will lead you to an area that is only instanced to you, that you can pick up resource nodes that are extra fruitful. So every resource node is going to give you more runes than normal. And as I mentioned, these also give you a large amount of inspiration, so they're great for leveling.